Hey everybody. In this video, I'm going to go over how to prepare some text for analysis in R, although the same principles apply for preparing text for really any kind of analysis. So I'm going to go through one specific way of handling that, and we're going to start by finding a text to work with. So what I'd like to do is pull up one of my favorite general conference talks by Russell M. Nelson. So I'm going to find that, and there it is. It's called Spiritual Treasures, and it was a talk given in October 2019. And I'm just going to go ahead, and there are a bunch of ways that I can access this text, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy all of this. Let me just do that really fast. Sorry, I made that look way more complicated than it actually is. So I can copy that text. Now, where we want to end up to be able to analyze the data is in a CSV file in Excel. But I found that it's much easier to manipulate this data in Word and then export it into Excel from there. I like Word as kind of an intermediary so that we can translate things nicely into Excel. So I am going to open Word and just paste this text into this document. And you'll notice here there's a little clipboard at the bottom. That gives me a bunch of paste options. So I just used the keyboard command, which is Control-V. So that pasted everything. But as you may have noticed, there were some images in there, and I don't want those to be included. So I am going to just paste text. There's a little option here, keep text only, and that's what I'm going to do. And that just keeps only the text here. Now, there are a couple of things that you'll notice. One is that I have paragraphs instead of separate sentences. And we're going to actually want to break out each sentence into its own thing. And then you'll also notice there are some extra paragraph breaks here. So we're going to take care of those two things before we move into Excel. If we import too quickly into Excel, it takes a lot more effort in Excel to sort of fix those things. So I'm going to Control-A to select all of this text. And I'm going to use Control-H to open my Find and Replace dialog. Now, the first thing I want to do is find and replace any period followed by a space. That's going to signal the end of a sentence. And I want to replace that with a paragraph break. And the symbol for that is ~P. So when I do that, it's just going to take all of those sentences and break them out into separate lines in my document. We're just going to go ahead and make sure that we did that in the entire document. All is well. The next thing I want to do is get rid of these extra spaces that we see here. So to do that, I'm going to search for double paragraph breaks, ~P, and I'm going to replace them with just a single paragraph break. So I'm going to replace all of those, make sure that I do it in the entire document. And I usually do it twice because sometimes you have like 3 paragraph breaks in a row. And if you do it twice, you can catch all of those as well. So I'm just going to do this twice. Looks like that wasn't a problem here. So just make sure that's all covered and we're good. So now I have text that is ready to be included or imported into an Excel document. And for me, the easiest way to do that is just to copy it over. So I'm going to select everything, Control-A, and I'm going to copy it, Control-C, and then I'm going to open a new Excel file, just a basic old worksheet here, and I'm going to use Control-V, and that copies all of my text over. This is going to look much prettier than what we would have seen if we had just gone straight from the web into Excel. We would have had a lot more cleaning to do in order to make that work. So this is text that will be ready to analyze. So I'm going to save this as a comma-separated values file. And I'm just going to pop it right on my desktop, and we'll call it Nelson. This is not the first time I've done this exercise. All right, and we're going to save that as a comma-separated values file, CSV. So there we go, and I'm just saving it on the desktop. That's important. We're going to have to navigate that in a minute. All right, so Excel isn't sure that we really want a CSV file. We do, so we're going to go ahead and click yes, and this file is ready to go. So the next thing we're going to do is open RStudio. And once we're inside, we're going to go navigate to, I already have it open here, but I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate navigating to the file that contains our code that we want to run to do a couple of different kinds of analysis with this text. So I'm going to open an R file. So I'm going to open file here. You can see that I could have done that with Control O as well. And I'm going to navigate to the file that I want open. In this case, I'm not sure where I saved that. There it is, right there on my desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and open that document. Now, there are a couple of different kinds of analysis that are happening in this document. And in order to make that happen, all of the packages that you're going to need to be able to do that are included here under Install Packages. I'm going to skip this step because I've already installed these packages on my computer. I'm going to start right here with the loading of the libraries. Let me just kind of walk through the very basics of what this code is doing and some of the things that you're going to want to pay attention to because they're handy things that you can mess with later on your own. One is that this line of code right here is going to import, it's going to open a window that allows us to import our text file, and it's going to let us navigate to that text file, and then it's going to assign that file the name text. So throughout the rest of this code, you'll see that we have this object called text. That's the item that we named in this line of code after we chose the file. So when we import that President Nelson talk, even though it originally had a different file name, we're going to rename it as text. And so we're going to do a bunch of stuff with that in the file. One of the first things we're going to do here in the analysis is to identify frequently used words. And in order to do that, we want to avoid really common words in the English language like the, if, and those are called stop words when you tell R not to include them in your analysis. So this set of code removes common stop words in the English language automatically. Like this is a library that already exists of words to remove. And so this set of code removes those from any of the analysis that we're doing. But you can also create your own stop words. And so there's a line of code here that allows you to do that. So the words that we're going to use as stop words here are put words here to exclude from your file. But obviously you would want to replace those with the words you're actually trying to remove from your file. And we'll see in a moment why that is relevant. So that's going to take us through the first type of analysis. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see there are a couple more libraries to load for the sentiment analysis. And down here, this analysis is going to analyze the sentiment of our text. And this is calling on a library not only of programming, but also of words in the English language that have been associated with numeric sentiments. So very negative numbers would mean very negative sentiment, and very positive numbers would mean very positive sentiment. So if you think of a word like hate, it would have a very strong negative sentiment. It would have a large negative number. Or you think of a word like love, that's a very positive sentiment, and that would be associated with a very positive number. And then words like the, if, then would be neutral words, and those are associated with a sentiment of 0. So using that library, we can take any text and identify the types of words that are being used in that text and determine what the sentiment of those words is. And from that, we can identify the average sentiment in the overall body of text, and we can also see a histogram plot that gives us a sense of what the overall sentiment is across the entire body of text. So let's give this thing a shot. Again, I've already installed these packages on my computer, so I'm going to start at the load function, and I'm just going to run both types of analysis all at once, and then we'll go through what gets kicked out. So I'm going to hit run here, and you'll notice that I get a little dialog window here. Sometimes it pops up on top of your RStudio window, and sometimes it doesn't. So in this case, it popped up behind, and so I had to look for it. And now I'm going to use this Nelson data file that we saved. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And it's going to just run everything really fast. So all of that code has just been run. And I want to show you the results. The first set of analysis counted our word frequency. So you can see these are the most common words used in President Nelson's talk: priesthood, will, power, temple, Lord, God, spiritual, understand, covenants, and upon. Now there are a couple of those words, will and upon, that I think would be useful stop words so that we can see what other words are really frequent, because I think these are probably frequent just because of the way President Nelson speaks, not because they're really central to his message. So we're going to rerun that in a moment using stop words of will and upon to see how that changes things. You can also notice here in the plots window, let me just see if I can make that a little bigger. I kind of widened it, but I didn't actually make it. So you can see over here the sentiment analysis of this talk. 0 is right here, and you can see that overall this is a very positively skewed talk. This is a talk that has a very positive sentiment, and there are a couple of moments where he's using words that have a more negative connotation associated with them, but for the most part this is a very positive talk. And over here in our console window, you can actually see the descriptive statistics for the sentiment that has been assigned to the language in this document. So our mean is a positive number here that indicates a positive sentiment. And you can see that there is some negative sentiment in the text, which is why we have this minimum that's a negative number. So let's go back and edit our code a little bit to include stop words. I'm just going to remind myself of what the stop words are that we wanted to exclude. We're going to pull out the words will and upon. So I'm going to change my code up here and I'm going to add will and upon. And I don't actually need the rest of these stop words. They're just there to indicate what you're doing in the code when you edit it. So we're going to pull these stop words out in addition to the common stop words from the English language. And we're going to rerun this piece of our code. So we've already imported the data. So I'm just going to go ahead and start there. And we don't need the sentiment analysis. So I'm going to run this piece again. And here in the console window, you can see the results of running that new analysis. It's added 2 additional words because we pulled 2 words out. That made space for 2 additional words. So now we have priesthood, power, temple, Lord God, spiritual, understand, covenants, sisters, world. So we've learned a little bit more about what's contained in this talk. And you'll notice that there are 10 words here that are included. And that's because of the code that we used. You can actually see this. Whoops, sorry. You can actually see this right here, the number of words that we are including. If we wanted more words, we could use a bigger number there. If we wanted fewer words, we could use a smaller number. So those are the basics of this little code snippet that we have to run and how to prepare data for it. I hope this was useful.